I'm Hilde Weber.
And I'm Evelyn Elliot.
Join us as we undertake a journey to find out everything you wanted to know about real estate in the Greater Seattle area. Hi, we're at Old Republic Title and Escrow today, and we're here talking to Tracy Oxton to find out a little bit more about the escrow process. So, Tracy, can you tell us a little bit about escrow?
Yes, escrow is, thanks for having me, and escrow is the neutral party between the buyers, the sellers, and all parties involved. That handles money, sending out documents, making sure everything's clear on title, making sure the signings are taking place on time, answering questions on both sides, just remaining neutral right down the middle and being the neutral party between the lender, getting loan documents, all of that, and finalizing all the final figures.
So let's sort of sidestep a little bit. So a client finds their dream house, makes an offer, the offer is accepted, and we have mutual acceptance. Normally, we as agents then send a copy of that contract through to escrow. What happens?
Well, escrow would step in once the contract is mutually signed, and at that point, it would be sent over to the escrow company. We would at that point review the contract, make sure everything is as expected, get any questions we have up front prepared, talk to the agents, and call and introduce ourselves to the buyer and seller, congratulate them, let them know that we've got their transaction and that who we are, so they, when they're getting information from us, they know where it's coming from and what to expect in the next coming weeks with the transaction. And then at that point, we're going to request some information from the seller that's needed to clear the title report, and then start the processing of ordering the payoffs, ordering the commission disbursements, all the items necessary to ensure the buyer that everything's taken care of. And at that point, just get in contact with the lender and work towards getting the closing.
In Washington, the buyers and the sellers don't meet around the same escrow table for closing as you do, in other states, whether it's in Minnesota or on the East Coast. What happens here?
Well, in our state, it's mainly because of privacy reasons. We don't have everybody sit around at the same table because there is a lot of very personal information in a buyer's set of loan documents. All their financial history is there. Same with sellers. Some sellers don't necessarily feel that it's a buyer should have knowledge of what they owed on the property, how much they have coming back to them isn't public knowledge in some opinion. So we do them separately to respect both parties' privacy. And the appointments are usually either in our office or outside of the office, and it is done ahead of the closing date in most cases. There are times it can be pushed to the morning of the closing date, but that's not ideal in our state because we do then have procedures we have to do after the signing that make it very tight to do that all same day. So ideally, we'd like to have everybody signed if not one day, 1 to 3 days prior to closing is ideal.
So after everybody comes in and signs their individual documents, are they finished? What's going to happen next?
In a seller's case, we're not doing much on the seller's stuff after the signing. In a buyer's case with a loan, there is all the lender stuff that still needs to be done. The lenders still do want to see their documents back in their office on most cases to review them, to go over them and make sure all the signatures were done correctly, everybody signed where needed. All the papers are exactly as they wanted them to be. So at that point we do a funding package, we send them back to the lender. Some lenders have anywhere from a 24-hour to a 72-hour review time. It's all depending on the lender. So we get it back to them, they review them, and then they tell us if there's anything needed. At that point, we would have to contact the buyer, or seller or agents, and ask for what we need at that point. And then get everything together, gather it up, and then send it to recording the day of closing.
Any words of advice to a buyer to make the whole escrow process run more smoothly or easier?
First and foremost, probably making sure you're in town at the time of signing and not on vacation. You and your spouse, because more than likely both of you would need to be present in some respect for the purchase. Even if they are quick claiming off, you'd still need to both sign some documents. And if you're not going to be, at least address it prior to that close to closing. Money, make sure that if your funds are coming from a stock or a brokerage account or anything other than a local bank, that you've got that money in order, that you've got it in a local bank, because sometimes it does take longer to sell your stocks and then transfer them to your local bank than you expect it would take. So kind of get all of that stuff in order. Probably at least start worrying about that a week, if not 2 weeks prior to closing. Other than that, be ready to sign. And that, just be ready to sign, and that's really probably the major thing. And then be ready to move.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for having me.